Going to a well-known school in Singapore, I thought if I hit all the right KPIs, perfect grades, top JC, elite university, I'd be set for life. But out here, I realized that no one really cares about all of this. And today, I'm going to be talking about everything I had to unlearn from my time in elite school in Singapore. So for some background, I did go to a school in Singapore located in Bishan that was well known for sending its students to top universities around the world like Oxbridge as well as the Ivy League. And the first one is going to be none other than the illusion of guaranteed success. In Singapore, we're taught that we live in a meritocratic system, and in school, the next step was always clear. You study, you get results, you work hard, you get a reward. But life outside of school doesn't really care about all of this. Job markets shift, industries collapse, and a lot of the time, promotions aren't really based on merit, but more about how likable you are to key decision makers. Meanwhile, having kept in touch with some batchmates from school as well as in the army, I also know people who did everything right but fell behind after being complacent, thinking that their degree would automatically land them a job, even if they didn't hustle earlier to secure things like internships and graduate roles. Meanwhile, there were also what we thought to be underperformers from school times that are now miles ahead. Of course, these are very extreme scenarios, but I think one trap that comes with going to a selective school or a school that a lot of people see as elite and doing well academically is that we start to actually believe everything that they tell us, that we're good enough to go off into the real world and that things should generally be okay. And clearly, in today's uncertain economy, while a lot of people from elite schools do very well, there are also those who fall through the cracks. Moving on to the second thing that I had to unlearn, which was this silent culture of judgment. Now, back in school, we were conditioned to only listen to people or take seriously people with credentials. And this could include people with good academic achievements, they might have certain titles, and this manifested itself during my army days of discounting what other people from other backgrounds had to say. It's kind of like that generic advice that tells you to only listen to someone if you want your life to be like theirs. But the reality of it is, as I've come to mature, whether it was going to reservists or going into the workplace, I realized I was missing out valuable life lessons from people with totally different paths. Whether it is the career journey of a friend who went to Polytechnic and then ended up in a top hedge fund in London, or it was an army mate who may not be that far along in life, who had better fitness, personal grooming, and charisma, I realized that I had to grow out of this silent elitism that was conditioned into us when we were in school. Just because someone isn't from a top school or isn't doing as well as you in several metrics doesn't mean that there is no wisdom to learn from this. You might think this is just something that's limited to elite schools, but applying this to the macro, I realize what's more dangerous is how silent judgment leaks into our overall worldview as Singaporeans. From what I observed in Singapore, I noticed that many of my friends who came from similar backgrounds have this similar silent judgment culture where they judge co-workers who come from neighboring Southeast Asian countries. They think that just because they grew up here, we have a top education system here, that somehow we are more competent and therefore worth being paid a higher salary. However, when I studied and worked in London, something hit me about this. Many of the top students in Cambridge, LSE, Imperial, and UCL weren't just Singaporeans like myself. They were Malaysians, Filipinos, Indonesians, and Thai. They were just as sharp, if not sharper, than many of our government scholars, a lot of whom are seen as the pinnacle of Singaporean meritocracy. Yet back home, I heard comments from friends that implied they were somehow less capable just because they were from a country whose currency was not as strong. The truth is, talent is everywhere and opportunity isn't. And if we keep pretending that having, a nicer passport or a stronger currency makes you superior, then we're not just being arrogant, we're being blind, like the frog at the bottom of a well in that Chinese idiom. Moving on to the final thing that I had to unlearn, which is going to be not knowing how to ask for help. Now, with this whole culture of demonstrated competence equating to status being particularly rampant when your school is filled with top academic performers, it becomes easy to believe that asking for help from someone else is equivalent to showing weakness. This is especially the case when we are told we're graded on a bell curve, basically having our exam scores compared against everyone else and therefore being in competition with everyone else. This actually carried over into the workplace when I started my career in banking and was something that they actively had to tell us, that there was no stupid question. But that is besides the point. Over the years, I realized that in real life, it's the people who ask early, collaborate well, and manage their egos who go the furthest. And there was really this need to unlearn this lone wolf, I'm the most competent guy in the room mentality. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this kind of content and want to see more, make sure you subscribe to this channel because we'll be coming out with similar content very soon. That's all from me for today. With all that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.